Michael Thompson sat in his spacious, modern office overlooking the city. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting a warm, golden hue over the glass buildings that filled the skyline. It had been a typical day, meetings with high-profile clients, discussing new investments, overseeing his company's expansion, but something was off. He could feel it deep inside, a nagging unease that refused to leave him. It wasn't just a passing thought, a fleeting moment of doubt. No, this was something more persistent, something that had been growing in him for the last few months. Rachel, his wife of 8 years, had changed. Or rather, it was as if she was slipping away, bit by bit. At first, Michael dismissed it. She was busy with her work, a thriving event planning business that had taken off in the last year. Her social calendar was packed, and her commitments outside of their home seemed to leave her with little time for anything else. But as the months went by, the changes became more noticeable. She wasn't as present during dinner anymore, often distracted or quiet, staring at her phone instead of engaging in conversation. When they did talk, it was surface level, nothing deep, nothing emotional. She'd come home late from meetings, sometimes with a vague excuse about last-minute events or last-minute clients. On rare occasions, she would come back and seem almost defensive, as if she had something to hide. But Rachel wasn't the kind of person who hid things, or at least, that was how Michael had always known her. Their relationship had been built on trust, open communication, and mutual respect. Yet recently, there were cracks in that foundation, subtle at first, but now undeniable. It wasn't just her behavior, though. It was the little things. Michael noticed that Rachel's phone, once casually left around the house, was now always with her, glued to her side like an extension of her own body. The screensaver, once a picture of the two of them from their last vacation in Italy, had been changed to a photo of a random beach at sunset, something that seemed completely out of character. And there was the matter of the phone calls. She had begun taking them in private, stepping outside, or retreating to their bedroom. There were even times when Michael would ask who had called, only to hear vague answers, just a client, or nothing important. The final straw, the moment that pushed Michael from doubt into a place of undeniable suspicion, came one rainy Tuesday evening. He had finished a long day of meetings and decided to surprise Rachel with dinner at her favorite restaurant. He knew she had been working late, so he figured they could use a quiet, intimate night together. But when he arrived home, he found that she wasn't there. Her car was parked in the driveway, but the house was eerily silent. The clock on the wall ticked away the minutes as Michael waited, growing more uneasy by the second. When Rachel finally did walk in, nearly an hour later than expected, her face was flushed. She was out of breath, as though she had been rushing. Michael noticed the faint smell of perfume, one he didn't recognize, clinging to her clothes. The moment he asked where she had been, she hesitated. "I got caught in traffic," she explained quickly, but Michael could tell she was lying. The way she shifted her eyes, the nervousness in her voice, it was all wrong. That was the moment the seed of doubt planted itself deep in his mind. His gut told him that something wasn't right, but he couldn't figure out what. Rachel was his best friend, his partner in life. They had built everything together. They shared their dreams, their fears, their goals. So why was it that she was becoming a stranger in their own home? The following weeks felt like a slow unraveling of everything Michael thought he knew. Rachel's behavior only grew more erratic. She began staying out later, often without explanation. She became more elusive, and the more Michael tried to talk to her about it, the more defensive she became. "You're being paranoid," she would say, her voice sharp and irritated. "I'm just busy with work. Can't you understand that?" But Michael couldn't ignore the feeling in the pit of his stomach. It gnawed at him, growing stronger with each passing day. There was a distance between them now that hadn't been there before. And the hardest part was that he couldn't pinpoint the reason why. He had trusted Rachel with everything, yet now, with each passing day, her secrets seemed to multiply, like invisible walls being built between them. One evening, unable to sleep, Michael decided to go through Rachel's things. It wasn't something he was proud of, but he felt desperate. If she wasn't going to be honest with him, maybe he could uncover the truth on his own. As he sifted through the drawers in their bedroom, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But it was when he opened her purse, looking for her keys, that he found something that made his heart stop. A small slip of paper, tucked deep in the side pocket, with a name and a number written on it. The name was unfamiliar, and the number wasn't something Michael recognized. His pulse quickened as he stared at the paper in his hand. For a moment, he just stood there, frozen, staring at the phone number. It was like a weight had dropped in his stomach. He had no idea what this meant, but he knew he couldn't ignore it. Was Rachel having an affair? Or was there something else going on that he just didn't understand? Michael had always been a man of logic, someone who preferred facts over feelings, proof over speculation. But now, in the face of uncertainty, he realized how little he knew about the woman he had married. And for the first time, he found himself questioning everything. He couldn't confront her about it, not yet. But the next day, Michael decided to take a different approach. He would find out the truth. If Rachel wasn't going to be honest with him, he would find someone who could help. That's when the idea of hiring a private detective came to mind. He had heard of a few cases in the past where people used detectives to uncover the truth when they felt betrayed or lied to. Maybe this was the answer. The thought of hiring someone to spy on Rachel felt wrong, almost like a violation of the trust they had built over the years. But the need for answers outweighed his sense of guilt. If she was hiding something from him, if she was lying about her whereabouts, Michael needed to know the truth. He couldn't stand the uncertainty any longer. The next morning, Michael made the call. He contacted a well-known private detective agency that specialized in discreet investigations. The detective, Sam Walker, was an experienced professional with a reputation for getting results without drawing attention. Michael explained his situation, and Sam agreed to take on the case. It wasn't something that Michael was proud of, but it was the only option left. As he hung up the phone, a wave of mixed emotions washed over him. Part of him was relieved, he would finally get the answers he needed. But another part of him felt a deep sense of sadness, as if he was betraying the very woman he loved. He had never imagined he would be in a situation like this, having to rely on a stranger to uncover the truth about his wife. That evening, as he sat at home alone, waiting for any updates, Michael couldn't help but wonder what would happen if he discovered something he didn't want to know. What if Rachel was hiding something that would change everything? What if the life they had built together was nothing more than a lie? The uncertainty hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Michael didn't know what the future held, but he knew that the truth would eventually come to light. And when it did, he would have to face it, no matter how painful it might be. Little did Michael know, this was just the beginning. The detective's findings would change everything, things that Michael never could have anticipated. And in the end, he would be forced to make a decision that would alter the course of his life forever. The following week, Michael found himself consumed by an overwhelming mixture of dread and anticipation. Every phone call or message from Sam Walker made his heart race, yet he couldn't bring himself to ignore the gut-wrenching thought. What if he was about to discover something that would destroy everything he had worked so hard to build? Rachel had always been his rock, his partner. They'd been through tough times before, but this felt different. He couldn't quite pinpoint it, but his instincts told him something was wrong. Now, there was no turning back. Each day, Michael paced the house, checking his phone every few minutes. He couldn't help but replay the moments in his mind, the distant looks Rachel had given him, her evasive behavior, the secretive conversations that seemed to hold more weight than they should. But there was also that slip of paper with the phone number. A seemingly innocent piece of paper, but in it, Michael saw a fracture. That little piece of evidence planted a seed of doubt, and now it was taking root in his mind. Sam's reports started coming in gradually. At first, they were small details, observations that seemed almost innocuous. Rachel had gone to a business dinner with a few colleagues. She had made an unremarkable trip to the mall to pick up some personal items. Nothing out of the ordinary, nothing that made Michael's heart drop. But with each passing day, the reports began to build. One night, Sam told him that Rachel had been seen leaving her office late, but instead of heading home as usual, she drove to a downtown hotel. The name of the hotel didn't seem significant at first, just a place for business meetings or out-of-town guests, but it was the following night that made Michael's stomach churn. Rachel had spent the entire evening at the same hotel, leaving only in the early hours of the morning. No mention of any work meetings, no brief stop at the office, just a direct route to the hotel. This wasn't part of her usual routine, and the timing felt off. Michael couldn't escape the feeling that he was walking a tightrope, balancing between confronting Rachel and plunging deeper into the darkness of uncertainty. His mind raced as he weighed his options. Confronting her now could cause irreparable damage, but doing nothing was eating away at him. He couldn't let this go without understanding the full truth. Sam had suggested Michael join him the following weekend to observe the situation in person. He felt nervous about the idea of spying on his wife, but the thought of finding the answers he needed soon became too tempting to resist. It was late Friday night when Michael received the call that would change everything. Sam had confirmed it, Rachel was at the hotel again, this time with someone else. The report didn't specify the identity of the other person, but Michael could feel his entire world tremble. He couldn't deny it any longer, there was something happening that he wasn't aware of, something that Rachel wasn't sharing with him. The thought of her being involved with someone else tore through him, ripping apart the fragile illusion he had clung to. The decision to go and witness it for himself came swiftly after that. Michael had to see the truth with his own eyes. He drove to the hotel that Saturday evening, heart pounding in his chest, nerves tightly wound. As he parked in a nearby lot, he couldn't shake the feeling of being an intruder in his own life. His thoughts were a chaotic mess, bouncing between anger, sadness, confusion, and disbelief. The idea of Rachel betraying him felt unbearable, but if she was hiding something, he needed to know. He couldn't let his emotions cloud his judgment. As he stood outside the hotel, staring up at the entrance, his mind kept replaying every detail he had learned. The way Rachel had changed over the past few months, the odd behavior, the secrecy. Was he overreacting? Was he reading too much into things? Or was the worst-case scenario happening right before his eyes? He felt a lump form in his throat and swallowed hard. The last thing he wanted was to lose his marriage, his family, but if he was being kept in the dark, the truth was the only thing that could heal the wounds. He waited outside the hotel for what felt like hours. Every car that pulled into the parking lot made his pulse quicken, his heart skipping a beat. He wasn't sure what he was looking for, but he knew that when the moment came, he would recognize it. Finally, around midnight, Michael saw a familiar figure walking toward the entrance. Rachel. She was dressed casually, but there was a certain grace in her stride that he recognized immediately. She had always carried herself with confidence, but tonight, there was something different about the way she walked, as if she were in a hurry to escape her own life. His heart pounded as he watched her disappear inside the hotel. He stood frozen for a moment, watching through the glass doors as she entered. There were no signs of hesitation, no glances over her shoulder, no clues that might suggest she was doing something she shouldn't. Just Rachel, entering the hotel without a second thought. His mind was racing. Was she meeting someone? Was she involved in something he didn't know about? Michael didn't wait long before his curiosity, and the anger that followed, drove him to act. He slipped into the hotel lobby, trying to blend in, his footsteps echoing in the quiet space. His eyes scanned the room, waiting for any sign of what he might find. He tried to steady his breath, but his hands were trembling. His mind kept replaying every moment of doubt that had crossed his mind in the past months. What if he was about to uncover a secret that would destroy everything? As he walked through the hotel, trying to stay inconspicuous, he heard the faint sound of laughter coming from a side hallway. He paused, his heart in his throat. He followed the sound quietly, each step heavier than the last. There, at the end of the hallway, was Rachel. But she wasn't alone. With a sinking feeling, Michael watched as she laughed softly with a man. The man was tall, with a well-dressed appearance, and his hand lingered on Rachel's arm in a way that made Michael's blood run cold. This wasn't a colleague. This wasn't a business associate. This was something more intimate. Something far more dangerous. For a long moment, Michael couldn't move. He was paralyzed by a mix of emotions: betrayal, anger, confusion, and even shame. He never thought he would find himself in a situation like this. He had trusted Rachel with everything, and now it seemed that trust had been shattered in the most unimaginable way. Suddenly, the man leaned in, whispering something into Rachel's ear. Michael's blood boiled as Rachel smiled, a smile he hadn't seen in a long time. It was the kind of smile she had only shared with him when they were in love, when they were young and carefree. But now, it was a smile that felt like a cruel joke, one that made Michael question every moment he had ever shared with her. Before he could process it any further, Rachel and the man turned to enter one of the hotel rooms. Michael stood frozen, his body numb from the shock of what he had just witnessed. His mind reeled with questions. What did this mean? Was it an affair? A one-time mistake? Or had Rachel been leading a double life that he had never known about? He couldn't breathe. The walls around him felt as though they were closing in, trapping him in a nightmare he never thought he would live. Every hope he had for their future, every dream they had shared, now seemed to crumble away into nothingness. And with every step Rachel took toward that hotel room, Michael felt himself being left behind, stranded in a world that no longer made sense. The truth was finally out. But it had come at a price that Michael wasn't sure he was prepared to pay. Michael stood there for what felt like an eternity, his body frozen in place. His heart hammered in his chest as he watched Rachel disappear into the hotel room with the stranger. Every muscle in his body screamed for him to do something, to storm in there and confront them both. But something held him back, a paralyzing fear of what might happen next. The world around him blurred, and his mind struggled to keep up with the rapid series of thoughts rushing through him. This wasn't just an affair, this was something deeper, more complicated, and it felt like his entire life was slipping through his fingers. He staggered back down the hallway, desperately trying to hold himself together. His mind replayed the images of Rachel laughing with the man, the intimacy they shared that was supposed to be reserved for him. Anger bubbled up inside him, but it was quickly overshadowed by the crushing weight of disbelief. Rachel, the woman he had married, the woman he had built a life with, had been living a secret life without him. He didn't know how long he stood there, leaning against the wall, trying to steady his breath. It felt like the air was too thick to breathe, like the walls of the hotel were closing in around him. The world he thought he knew had shattered into pieces, and there was no way to put it back together. In a daze, Michael turned and stumbled out of the hotel, his mind numb and clouded. He didn't know where he was going or what he was supposed to do. His car was parked just a few blocks away, but it felt like an insurmountable distance. The thought of returning home, facing Rachel, seemed impossible. What could he say? How could he confront her without losing everything? He had always believed in honesty, in openness, but now it seemed as though the foundation of their marriage had been built on lies. His mind kept racing with questions. Was this the first time? Was it someone else she had been seeing behind his back? How long had she been lying to him? The answers to these questions felt like a storm inside him, swirling, crashing, and tearing him apart. After what felt like hours of aimless wandering, Michael found himself parked outside their house. The familiar sight of their home, once a place of comfort and security, now felt foreign. The place where they had raised their children, celebrated anniversaries, and built a life together had become a symbol of everything he had lost. He couldn't bring himself to go inside. The weight of the situation pressed down on him, suffocating him with its intensity. His mind was overwhelmed by the need to understand, to confront Rachel, to demand answers. But where would he even start? As the hours passed, Michael sat in his car, staring at the house, trying to summon the strength to face what he knew was inevitable. His phone buzzed in his pocket, pulling him from his thoughts. It was a message from Sam. "I've got more. Call me when you're ready." Michael's hands trembled as he read the message. He had asked Sam to keep him updated, to follow Rachel and gather more information, but now the thought of hearing more only made him feel like he was being buried under a mountain of evidence. Was he ready for the truth? Did he want to know what more Sam had discovered? He put the phone down, trying to gather his thoughts. The idea of confronting Rachel was terrifying, but the longer he waited, the more the unknown ate away at him. He needed answers. He needed to know how deep this betrayal ran. He took a deep breath and dialed Sam's number. "Michael," Sam's voice answered after the first ring. "I've been tracking her again. I'm not sure what you want to hear, but it's worse than I thought." Michael's stomach twisted. "What do you mean? What did you find?" Sam hesitated for a moment. "Rachel's been meeting with the same man every week. It's not just at the hotel. I've been following them, and it's clear this isn't a one-time thing. They've been meeting at different locations, different times. She's not just spending time with him, she's planning something. I don't know what, but I've seen the way they talk, the way they look at each other. This isn't just an affair, Michael. There's something else going on here." Michael's chest tightened as he processed the words. He had suspected something was off, but hearing it from Sam made the reality hit him like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just a betrayal, it was a betrayal with a purpose. What were they planning? Why had Rachel been keeping this a secret? And why hadn't he seen the signs? "What do I do, Sam? How do I handle this?" Michael's voice cracked with the weight of the question. He was no longer sure of anything. The trust he had in Rachel was gone, replaced by a deep, gnawing uncertainty. How could he ever trust her again? "You need to confront her, Michael," Sam said bluntly. "You can't keep running from the truth. You deserve to know what's going on, and she owes you that much." The thought of confronting Rachel made Michael's stomach turn. What would he say? How could he even begin to make sense of everything that had happened? He had always been a man of action, but now he felt paralyzed by indecision. What if the confrontation only made things worse? What if the damage was irreversible? His mind spun in circles, each possibility leading to a different nightmare. But Sam was right. He couldn't keep avoiding the truth. He had to face Rachel, had to hear the words from her own mouth. It would be the hardest thing he had ever done, but there was no other choice. He couldn't live in this limbo, haunted by the unknown. He needed answers. With a heavy heart, Michael walked up to the front door of their house. Every step felt like a weight pressing down on him, but he pushed forward. He had to know the truth. No matter how much it hurt, no matter how much it shattered the life he had built, he needed to face it. He knocked on the door, his knuckles rapping against the wood. The sound echoed through the silence of the house, amplifying the uncertainty that churned within him. When Rachel opened the door, Michael's breath caught in his throat. She looked as beautiful as ever, but her eyes were different. There was something in them that he couldn't quite place, guilt, fear, or maybe just the realization that the truth was about to come to light. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of the situation hung in the air, suffocating them both. "I know, Rachel," Michael said, his voice barely a whisper. "I know what's been happening. I know about him. I saw you with him last night. At the hotel." Rachel's face drained of color. She stepped back, her hand instinctively going to her mouth, as though she could stop the words from escaping. "Michael, No," Michael interrupted, shaking his head. "I don't want to hear the excuses. I want the truth. What's going on? What have you been hiding from me? Tears welled up in Rachel's eyes, but Michael couldn't bring himself to feel pity. Not yet. The hurt was too raw, too fresh. I never meant for this to happen, Rachel said quietly. I didn't want to hurt you. But I don't know how it happened. I didn't plan for it. It just did. Who is he? Michael asked, his voice trembling with anger and confusion. Her shoulders sagged, and for a long moment, she didn't answer. Then she finally spoke. His name is David. He's someone from my past, someone I never thought I'd see again. But when he came back into my life, they just got complicated. David. Michael repeated the name in his mind. The stranger who had entered their lives like a shadow, leaving destruction in his wake. What does he mean to you? Michael demanded. Why are you meeting with him, week after week? Why didn't you tell me? Rachel looked away, her voice barely audible. I didn't know how to explain it. I didn't want to lose you. But David, he's been a part of my life before. And when we met again, I felt like I couldn't breathe without him. Michael's heart shattered as the reality of Rachel's betrayal sank in. She wasn't just seeing someone else, she was emotionally invested in him. The life they had built together, the future they had planned, it all seemed to unravel in that moment. The truth was out. But Michael had no idea what to do next. Michael stood there, his mind spiraling as Rachel's words echoed in his ears. It was all out in the open now, a painful reality that was so much worse than he could have imagined. He tried to process what she had just admitted, but the anger and disbelief mixed in his chest left him numb. His hands clenched into fists, and his throat tightened. Rachel had been carrying on a secret affair with this man, David, someone from her past, someone she hadn't mentioned to him once during the years they had been married. This wasn't a one-time mistake, it was a betrayal of everything they had built together, of all the trust they had shared. The love he had given her, the countless sacrifices, the way they had raised their children together, all of it now seemed meaningless. Rachel's tear-filled eyes searched his face, looking for some sign of forgiveness, but Michael couldn't give her that. He couldn't bring himself to let go of the hurt that surged within him. Every fiber of his being wanted to scream, to lash out, to demand answers that would make sense of the chaos. But as much as he hated to admit it, part of him was still holding on to the hope that there was some explanation, some reason why she had let this happen, why she had chosen to be with someone else. But nothing about this made sense. Nothing about it was fair. I didn't mean for it to happen, Michael, Rachel whispered, taking a tentative step toward him, her hand outstretched. I never wanted to hurt you. I love you, but I was lonely. I felt so distant from you for so long. And when David came back into my life, it was like he understood me in a way you couldn't. Michael recoiled from her touch, taking a step back. The words felt like a slap across his face. Lonely, he repeated bitterly. You were lonely. While we were building a life together, you were lonely. You couldn't talk to me about this. You couldn't have come to me. I would have listened. I would have understood. His voice cracked with frustration, and the hurt and betrayal coursing through him made him feel like he might collapse at any moment. But he couldn't. He couldn't let her see how broken he felt, not yet. And you think that justifies what you've done? Rachel's shoulders slumped, the weight of her guilt pressing down on her. She had no answer to that. What could she say? There was no way to justify the depth of the betrayal she had caused. She had made a choice, and now there was no going back. A long silence hung between them, stretching out, suffocating them both. Michael's mind raced. He had never imagined that something like this could happen, especially not with Rachel. But here they were, standing in the wreckage of their relationship, trying to find words for something so impossible to fix. How could he ever look at her the same way again? How could he trust her again? He felt sick to his stomach, overwhelmed with the sheer weight of it all. This wasn't just about an affair, it was about the life they had shared, the dreams they had built together, the future that now seemed like a distant memory. Michael had always believed that relationships were built on trust and communication. They had spent years together, sharing every part of their lives, or so he thought. But now it seemed that Rachel had been living in a world of her own, a world where Michael wasn't welcome, a world where she sought solace in someone else. "I don't know what to do with this," Michael muttered, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Rachel. I don't know if I can even look at you the same way." Her voice quivered as she responded, "Please, Michael. I never meant for any of this to happen. I didn't want to lose you. I don't want to lose everything we've had. But I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to make it right." A bitter laugh escaped his lips, the sound hollow and painful. "Make it right?" He shook his head in disbelief. "I don't even know if that's possible. You've broken something that can't just be fixed with an apology, Rachel. I thought we had something real, something unbreakable. But now, I don't even know who you are anymore." The tears that Rachel had been holding back began to fall freely. She reached out to him again, but Michael didn't move, didn't let her touch him. There was a time when he would have welcomed her embrace, when her touch would have comforted him. But now, all it did was remind him of how far they had drifted apart, of how much she had hurt him. "I know I've made a terrible mistake," Rachel said, her voice breaking. "But please, don't give up on me. Don't give up on us. We can work through this. We've been through so much together, Michael. We can get past this, I swear." Michael felt the weight of her words pressing down on him, but deep inside, he knew that it wasn't that simple. Could they really get past this? Could he ever trust her again? Could they rebuild the foundation of their marriage when it had been shattered so completely? He didn't have the answers. All he knew was that the pain he felt right now was suffocating, and the thought of going on like this, living in this lie, was unbearable. "I don't know if I can, Rachel," Michael whispered, his voice hoarse. "I don't know if I can look past this. You've crossed a line that I don't think I can come back from. I need time. I need space to think about everything." Rachel nodded, her face crumpling with sorrow. She understood. She knew the gravity of what she had done, and she knew that words alone wouldn't fix it. She had betrayed him in the worst possible way, and now she had to face the consequences of her actions. Michael turned away from her, his mind spinning with a million thoughts. The only thing he knew for sure was that his world had changed irrevocably. The woman he had loved, the woman he had trusted with everything, had betrayed him in the most intimate way. And now he had to figure out how to move forward. But as he walked away from their home that night, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had already broken beyond repair. The life they had shared, the love they had built, seemed like a distant memory, and Michael was left standing at the crossroads of a future that seemed uncertain, filled with pain and doubt. His phone buzzed in his pocket, pulling him from his thoughts. It was Sam again. The message was brief: "David's gone. He left town last night. But I think you need to know something else." Michael's heart skipped a beat. What now? What more could there possibly be? He didn't want to know, didn't want to face whatever else Sam had uncovered. But he knew, deep down, that the truth was the only thing that could set him free. With trembling hands, he opened the message. "There's something you need to know about Rachel," Sam had written. "David isn't just some guy from her past. He's involved in something much bigger. Something you need to be careful about." Michael's blood ran cold. What had he gotten himself into? What was Rachel really involved in? And how deep did this betrayal run? The questions kept piling up, each one more troubling than the last. He had thought he was prepared for the truth, but now he realized that this was only the beginning. Michael stood there, staring at his phone, his heart pounding as the weight of Sam's words hit him like a ton of bricks. There was something deeper, something far darker to this situation than he had ever imagined. Rachel wasn't just having an affair. She had been involved with someone connected to something much bigger, something that threatened to turn everything upside down. He ran his fingers over the screen, rereading the message, his mind trying to piece together what he was hearing. What could be bigger than an affair? What had Rachel gotten herself involved in? His head was spinning with questions. He couldn't understand how Rachel, his wife, the woman he had loved and trusted for over a decade, could be part of something so dangerous. But Sam's message was clear. David wasn't just a man from her past. He was connected to a world that Michael couldn't even begin to comprehend. And now, somehow, Rachel was tangled up in it. The truth of it all started to unfold slowly in Michael's mind. He thought back to the times Rachel had seemed distracted, the moments when she was distant or absent-minded. How many times had he brushed it off as her just being tired or preoccupied with work? How many times had he excused her behavior without asking the right questions? Now, every little detail felt like a piece of a puzzle he had never even known existed, a puzzle that was only now beginning to take shape in front of him. He dialed Sam's number without thinking. His hands shook as he waited for the call to connect. It rang once. Twice. And then Sam picked up. "Michael?" Sam's voice was low, almost cautious. "Are you okay?" "Sam, what the hell is going on?" "What do you mean, David's not just some guy? What are you talking about?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Michael could hear Sam's breath, steady and controlled, but there was an edge to it, a hint of urgency that sent a chill through his spine. "David's not just some guy from her past," Sam repeated, his voice tight. "He's involved in some illegal stuff. Big stuff. And Rachel, she's been helping him. I don't know how deep this goes, but it's bigger than you think, Mike." Michael's heart thudded painfully in his chest. Illegal stuff? What could this possibly mean? His mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. Had Rachel been hiding something from him all this time? Had she been lying to him? Or worse, had she been involved in something criminal without him knowing? "Sam, what are you saying? What kind of illegal stuff? How is Rachel connected to all of this?" There was another pause, longer this time, and Michael felt his blood run cold as Sam spoke again. "I don't have all the details yet," Sam said carefully. "But I've been doing some digging. David's not just some guy. He's connected to a network of people involved in fraud, money laundering, maybe even worse. Rachel's been helping him, whether she knew the full scope of it or not, I can't say. But she's not innocent in this, Mike." Michael's breath caught in his throat. Fraud? Money laundering? The words felt foreign, like they belonged in some crime thriller, not his life. This wasn't something he could easily ignore. The implications of what Sam was saying were staggering. Rachel wasn't just having an affair, she was potentially complicit in criminal activities. His mind kept circling back to the same question: how could she keep something like this from him? How could she live a double life without him having any clue? "I don't know what to say, Sam," Michael said, his voice hoarse. "I thought I knew her. I thought we had a life built on trust, on honesty. How could she be involved in something like this?" "People don't always show who they really are, Mike," Sam replied softly. "Sometimes it's easier to hide behind a mask, to play a role, than to face what's really going on. I don't think Rachel set out to get into all of this. But she's in it now. And you need to know the truth. For your own sake, you need to find out exactly what's going on." Michael's mind was racing. He had thought he was living in a nightmare before, but now it felt like he was trapped in a horror story that he couldn't escape. Rachel's betrayal ran much deeper than just an affair. She was entangled in something far more sinister, and Michael was at the center of it all. He couldn't ignore the warning signs. He needed to know everything, no matter how much it hurt. I'm going to find out what's going on, Michael said, his voice steady despite the turmoil churning inside him. I have to. For my own peace of mind. But Sam. If what you're saying is true, if Rachel's involved in something criminal, I don't know if I can keep going with this marriage. I don't know how I can look at her the same way again. I understand, man. But you need to be careful. This isn't just about your marriage anymore. This is bigger than you, bigger than Rachel. There are people involved in this who won't hesitate to do whatever it takes to protect themselves. You need to be smart. Michael nodded, even though Sam couldn't see him. The words hit home. He couldn't just rush into this blindly. He needed a plan, a strategy. He needed to uncover the full truth, no matter what it cost him. After hanging up with Sam, Michael sat in the quiet of his home, his mind reeling. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Everything he thought he knew about his wife, his life, was crumbling before him. It was as if someone had ripped apart the fabric of his reality and left him standing there, exposed and uncertain. He had to confront Rachel. He knew that. But how? How could he even begin to address something so complicated, so far-reaching? She had lied to him, hidden things from him for years. But now, with everything on the line, he had to face her. He had to get answers, even if it meant shattering what was left of their marriage. Michael stood up and paced the room, his thoughts racing. There was no way around it. He couldn't run from this. He had to find the truth, even if it tore him apart in the process. He had to make the most difficult decision of his life, confront Rachel, and find out just how deep this betrayal went. But as he thought about it, another thought surfaced, a thought that sent a chill through him. Was Rachel the only one involved in this? Or was there more to this story? Could David be the key to understanding everything? Was he just a pawn in a much larger game? And who else was watching? Who else knew about Rachel's secret life? The questions were endless. But one thing was certain, Michael couldn't rest until he had answers. The truth was out there, somewhere, and he was determined to uncover it, no matter the cost. The following days felt like an endless blur of anxiety and uncertainty for Michael. He barely slept, his mind constantly consumed by thoughts of Rachel's betrayal, and the dark secrets that had been hiding beneath the surface of their marriage. He was no longer the man who went to work each day with a clear head and a sense of purpose. Now, every action he took felt like it was weighed down by the realization that everything he had known about his life and his wife might have been a lie. The phone calls from Sam had become more frequent, but each conversation only deepened Michael's sense of unease. Sam, too, was digging into the situation, trying to uncover more details, but it seemed like the more they uncovered, the more questions emerged. David's involvement in illegal activities was becoming clearer, but the extent of his reach was still a mystery. Michael knew he couldn't keep living in this fog of half-truths. It was time to confront Rachel, to face the woman he had once loved and trusted, and demand the answers he so desperately needed. One night, after another exhausting day of trying to piece together the shattered fragments of his life, Michael made a decision. He couldn't wait any longer. He had to confront Rachel now, before the lies got any deeper, before the situation became even more dangerous than it already was. He couldn't let her continue to deceive him, couldn't allow this web of secrets to trap him any further. When Rachel walked through the door that evening, she seemed as calm and composed as always. But to Michael, she looked like a stranger. Her beauty, her smile, everything he once admired about her now felt like a mask. She had changed. She had been hiding something from him for far too long, and he wasn't sure he could ever look at her the same way again. "Michael," she asked, her voice warm as she dropped her keys into the bowl by the door. "How was your day?" His heart was racing, his hands trembling as he stood in the living room, watching her. He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he just stared at her, feeling the weight of the truth pressing down on him. There was no more time for pretending. No more time for playing along with the facade of their perfect life. "Sit down, Rachel," Michael said, his voice low but firm. "We need to talk." Her face faltered for a moment, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her features, but she did as he asked, sitting down on the couch across from him. Michael's eyes never left her, his mind working furiously, trying to find the right words. But nothing seemed adequate. Nothing could capture the whirlwind of emotions that had overtaken him. All he knew was that he needed answers. He needed to understand what had happened to their marriage, what had happened to Rachel. "I know about David," he said, finally breaking the silence. Rachel's eyes widened, and for a moment, Michael could have sworn he saw a flash of fear in her gaze, but she quickly masked it, her composure returning almost instantly. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice tight, almost too calm. Michael took a step forward, his fists clenched at his sides. He had waited so long for this moment, had rehearsed this confrontation 1,000 times in his mind. But now, facing her, it all felt different. It wasn't just about an affair anymore. It was about everything, about trust, betrayal, and the lies that had been eating away at their marriage. "I know about you and David," he repeated, his voice colder now. "And I know that he's not just some guy you were seeing. I know about the fraud. I know about the money laundering. I know that you've been involved in something much bigger than I ever could have imagined." Rachel's face paled, and for a moment, she seemed to lose her composure. She opened her mouth as if to speak but closed it again, her mind working furiously. Michael could see the fear creeping into her eyes now, the realization that her secrets were finally out. "Michael, I can explain," she said, her voice trembling. "Please, just let me explain." Michael shook his head, his mind a swirl of conflicting emotions. "Explain. Explain how you've been lying to me for years. Explain how you've been involved in criminal activities. You think I can just sit here and listen to your excuses?" Rachel's eyes filled with tears, and Michael could see the guilt written all over her face. For a moment, he thought she might break down, but she quickly composed herself, wiping her eyes and sitting straighter. She seemed to be gathering the strength to face him, to finally tell him the truth. "I never wanted any of this, Michael," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never wanted to hurt you. But I got caught up in something that I couldn't get out of. David, he wasn't just a random affair. He's a part of a network. He came to me when I was vulnerable, when I didn't know where else to turn. I never meant for it to get this far. But it did, and I didn't know how to stop it." Michael felt a pang in his chest, a mix of anger and sorrow. Rachel had always been the woman he admired, the woman he thought he knew better than anyone. But now, as she spoke, he realized just how little he truly understood her. She had been keeping this hidden from him for so long, and now, all of it was out in the open. The betrayal cut deeper than any affair ever could. "You were part of this, Rachel," Michael said, his voice shaking with emotion. "You were helping him. You knew what was going on. You chose to be a part of this world, and you lied to me about it. You put our entire lives at risk, and for what? What was it all for?" Rachel's face crumpled in sorrow, and she finally allowed herself to break down. She reached out for Michael, but he stepped back, his body tense with frustration and disbelief. "I didn't know it would go this far," she sobbed. "I never wanted to hurt you. But it was too late to back out. David, he has power, connections. I thought if I could just help him, things would be better. I thought I could control it. But I couldn't. I couldn't stop it." Michael stared at her, his mind racing. The woman he thought he knew had become someone he barely recognized. How could she have allowed herself to be pulled into something so dangerous, so far beyond anything they had ever talked about? How could she have chosen to betray him like this, not just emotionally, but morally, ethically? "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice quieter now, but still laced with hurt. "Why didn't you trust me enough to tell me the truth?" Rachel's tears flowed freely now, and she shook her head, unable to answer him. What could she say? What could she possibly say that would make this any better? There was no excuse for what she had done, no easy way out of the mess she had created. She had made her choices, and now she had to face the consequences. Michael stood there for a long moment, staring at the woman he had once loved, the woman who had been his partner for so many years. He couldn't look at her the same way anymore. The trust was gone, shattered beyond repair. And yet, he couldn't shake the sense of sadness that filled him, sadness for the life they had built, for the future that would never be the same. I don't know what to do anymore, Rachel, he said, his voice cracking. I don't know how to fix this. Rachel reached out for him again, but this time, Michael didn't move. He couldn't move. There was no going back from this, no way to undo the damage that had been done. The betrayal was too deep, the lies too many. In the silence that followed, Michael realized that he had a choice to make. He could stay, trying to rebuild what was left of their marriage, or he could walk away, finally free of the web of lies and secrets that had entangled them both. But either way, nothing would ever be the same again. The life he had known was gone, and in its place was a new reality, one filled with uncertainty and pain. But one thing was clear, no matter what happened next, he would never allow himself to be blind to the truth again. He had seen how far the lies had gone, and he wouldn't allow himself to be deceived any longer. With a final look at Rachel, Michael turned and walked out of the room, leaving behind the woman he once thought he knew. And as he stepped into the unknown, he knew that whatever came next, he would face it alone. But for the first time in weeks, he felt a small sense of clarity, he was no longer trapped in the dark.